Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. And John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's brilliant victory over Toulouse last weekend, all the other Heineken Cup action from the weekend, and of course look forward to our game against Wasps over in Coventry and all the other Heineken Cup action. So, 29-13 against Toulouse, a brilliant performance, especially considering all the injuries and suspensions.
That's what I was about to say. Brilliant, because it was so unexpected. Really, I mean, I thought we'd be up against it. I thought we might do it, but I didn't think we were going to score a try bonus point. And Dave Kearney was going to catch a cross kick from Ross Byrne, and I just didn't see it going that swimmingly well. So what they pulled out was amazing. Like Dai Young said, we were missing 5, as he called them, British Lions. None of them were British, but whatever. And we still managed. Well, I said Dai Young said it. I'm not saying it was true.
Some people can't wait for their career to go and be coached by Dai Young, right?
Yeah. Well, the other people just want a load of money in their back pocket and don't really give a shit who they're coached by. But to come through that with such distinction was pretty incredible. I'm sure we're going to pick out loads of bits, but Ruddock would have been my man of the match, followed closely by, I think Ringrose got it, didn't he?
Oh, Ringrose got it.
Ringrose is brilliant.
Scott Fardy was
amazing. Scott Fardy,
as ever.
Yeah.
He never has a bad game for us, and of course neither does James Ryan.
Nope.
It's hard to pick.
Conan was
a barbarian. It's hard to pick out a player who wasn't brilliant.
Took a while, but
so yeah, it's hard to pick out a player that wasn't doing their stuff. And when you see the backline we had, what everybody was worried about, Adam Byrne and Dave Kearney were brilliant.
Yeah.
Like Adam Byrne, every time he got the ball,
made a lot of ground.
And the one thing you notice about him is he always cuts back inside, so he never gets pushed into touch. And
he's a big strong boy too.
Well, yeah, but I think I was watching one of the matches over the weekend, and an illustrious former winger was saying that's criminal to get bundled into touch.
Oh yeah.
I think it was Trimble actually.
I think probably in Irish rugby, certainly under Joe Schmidt, it's the biggest crime you can commit. Is because it's like allowing the opposition to have an extra defender, which you didn't do. But I mean, it wasn't just the way we played together. It was the way we thought about the game and the way we went into that game and the tactics we used. If you look at it, I mean, Ross Byrne, who would be considered for want of a better phrase, a kicking out half, kicked the ball only 5 times. Not at all in the first half.
That was instructions, obviously.
But you saw the wind.
Yeah.
And when Toulouse were kicking the ball, it was been blown back infield. You could barely make 20 metres on the kicks. It was that fierce.
Absolutely, and that was that's the thing. Leinster had a game plan going into that match, took account of the conditions, took account of the operation, and executed it perfectly. I mean, from the second half, virtually the entire second half was played between the 10-metre line and their try line. Because that's where we wanted to play the game, and you saw Ringrose put through little dink kicks. Obviously Byrne was kicking for position, Luke McGrath started kicking box kicks and stuff like that, stuff that were advantageous to us in those conditions, and we just completely dominated the game, both physically and, for want of a better phrase, intellectually.
Yeah, well, they were kind of a bit at sea when their prop went off, their famous All Black Farmer Wayne went off.
He was having a good game in fairness.
He was having a good game, and it just seemed like there was it had a bit of a psychological effect on them from where I was, and they panicked a bit, I think, as well. They just kind of they ran out of ideas fairly quickly as to what to do. At first they were frustrated because they didn't get the ball, because we decided to keep it in the first half, and the fact that we came in, well, one way we were playing against the wind, so to come in ahead was pretty impressive considering the wind was such a big factor. It's funny when you're sitting back in the stand, you can't feel it at all. I don't know what about where you guys are.
The wind's blowing right into the face of the terrace.
Yeah, it is.
You get it, do you?
Bitterly cold there.
Yeah,
well, you can't even feel it, and I'm only 5 seats back from the pitch, and you just can't feel it at all. So it's odd when you have to look up at flags to see that they're blown. I think that it's just sheltered whatever way the wind blows in there. The grandstand seems to be sheltered.
And the atmosphere as well on the ground, it has to be said, was absolutely superb. It was top notch.
Yeah.
Another sellout. They're getting their sellouts. In fairness to the marketeurs in Leinster.
Leinster sell out.
Well, you know, like
In a good way.
they said, and they repeated it many times on Saturday, that the game against the Scarlets is almost sold out. There's a limited number of tickets available. We sold out against Ulster.
Yeah.
You know, so they're doing something right.
And there was another thing, that they asked the crowd to get into the ground early, which surprisingly for an Irish crowd, a lot of people did. We were there early because, you know, we were driving and we wanted to get parking with the inside just in Funland, so we were there quite early as it happens anyway. But I mean, the terrace began to fill up much earlier than it normally does, and you could see that in the stands and in the grandstand as well, that there was a lot more people in their seats early, which would have given the team a boost as well.
Well, you have to get it in early if you're in the north or south stand, because
True enough, yeah.
there's no
First come,
reserve
first served.
seats. Yeah.
One bit of bad news, I suppose, from Saturday was the injury that Luke McGrath suffered. You know, could have knock-on effects, obviously, down the road for Six Nations. We clearly don't know how badly the injury is, but he looked in a lot of discomfort when he was coming off.
Any word about that now?
All I've heard is that he left the ground with his knee in a brace. That's all I've heard. I'm sure.
Was it Andrew Bryce? Sorry.
Oh dear Lord. I'd like to apologise to our viewer.
Who we actually met at the match.
Yes, we met our viewer on the terrace as well. So he's obviously the real thing, you know,
the real McCoy.
The real McCoy. But so I mean, it's interesting actually, because we had a situation like going into this weekend where you had the 4 starters in all the provinces, Irish scrum halves, and then like 3 of them either get or were injured.
Cooney pulled out before
Cooney pulled
kick-off.
out now it's a back spasm, so that who knows what that means.
Marmion he had an operation.
It's interesting though, because the injuries to Cooney that he's had recently have given Dave Shanahan a chance, and something I never thought I'd say, but Dave Shanahan's playing really, really well.
Control that game fairly
he was
well.
really good, so he was,
On Saturday.
But I suppose on the flip side of that was when Gibson Park came on, he added an awful lot of pace to the, like. Even,
he did, yeah.
Even when we were
He
going.
does.
When we were going for, we needed that extra. The last try was on 75 minutes. He sprinted from miles
Yeah,
away.
because he dropped off because they were in possession and they were going to kick.
Exactly.
So he was dropped back to as a sweeper, and then the penalty was given. He was up like a shot.
And then, like, I know he's a scrum half and he's got to be able to pass strongly off both hands, but he threw a 30-metre pass off his weak side.
Oh yeah, no, it was a brilliant bit of play from him. It really was real heads up kind of. You know, saw the opportunity and took it kind of thing. And Adam finished well, although he didn't really have... There's a great... We would see it in the try, but watch the line Gary Ringrose takes. It's a very sneaky little line. It's a very good one.
Do you want to roll it there, Colette, when we watch them?
Well, sure, we may as well. This is our first try.
So this is Conan. Look at the score. I mean, it was 34 minutes.
Yeah,
so
it's still
3-3.
yeah.
That's what playing against the wind will do for you.
Somebody was saying it was a 10-point win, so
That's just where...
us been 4 points down was a real bonus. Or us been 4 points up, was a real bonus.
There was a nice pass out to Adam Byrne as well. He nearly did it as well. Huget just got him on as a second defender. I think it's just 2 phases now. Ruddock and then Conan's over. Boom.
Yeah.
We were doing that all day. We took them through loads and loads of phases the whole time. It must have caught up on them. You know, I know we also put in a huge shift I think it was in the third quarter in defence, where we just held them out. And you know, we were ahead by a good bit anyway. But once you saw them holding them out, it was like Munster the night before had one with Gloucester where they actually didn't hold them out, but you could tell by the way they were defending that they were going to win.
Yeah. In fairness, you could tell after 10 minutes that Munster were going to win that match.
But like it took Gloucester now, again we'll get to that shortly, but it did take them 35 phases to score, you know. It was almost they were trying not to.
Well, they didn't need too many phases to do that one anyway. Good old Jack.
A great reward for Conan, well deserved, like for some very, very good play.
As you said, he had a very good game, and he had, I wouldn't say he had Jerome Kano in his pocket, but he was the better 8 on the day. And Jerome Kano is, as we know, a fairly fearsome player.
Yeah, he uses footwork to get an advantage when he's
Here we go. Here's the beautiful ball.
This is on a
sixpence.
But what's the strength that Dave Kearney uses in
To get
even
that
though he's
foot
taking-
down
to get
and-
the foot down in play.
Yeah.
You know, he really has. Even though he's in the air, he really has to fight for that.
Yeah.
Should this have been a penalty try and a yellow card, regardless of whether he scored?
I think under the laws of the game, it should have been a penalty try and a red card because he tackled a player in the air.
But it's how he falls, though, right?
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Yeah. But it certainly should have. I mean, we missed the conversion, so
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's what I mean. Whereas obviously a penalty try now is.
I think refs are encouraged not to go for double bubble. You know, give a penalty try and a yellow card if the try has been scored.
Yeah,
Well, as it turns out, it didn't matter. We went
but
and
it
got
might
4
have.
anyway.
Though. But it might
Yeah,
have.
it might have.
You know, if
That's why we're not bitter, because it didn't matter.
okay, but I mean, I'm just saying that you could be in a situation where
Yeah.
you did need those 2 points.
Hmm.
And this is the by now customary
Yeah,
Sean Cronin try.
Yeah. Huge try scoring record for Leinster.
Yeah. This is a bit of a shorter run than his usual ones.
Yeah. And
But no
James
less
Ryan
clever.
always makes a yard.
No, it's just good carries, you know.
Yeah.
but like he just knew immediately he scored.
But you see no white line fever there. Nobody doing anything stupid, going off in little solos or anything like that.
Yeah. Just pops the ball in. Yes, that was the try line, ref.
They just knew immediately it was
Yeah.
going to be awarded.
The ref just was checking that he wasn't part of the ruck.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And the question I have to ask as a front row player is, why wasn't he part of the ruck?
Because he needed to score the try.
He did a decent game as ref, Pierce, I thought.
Yeah. Well, he let a lot go, but
at the match though, it looked like that they were coming up offside an awful
an
lot.
awful lot.
Now
Yeah.
maybe it was that they were exceptionally quick off the line.
I think that they defended the same way as we defend, very hard up. I mean, I'm sure there are Toulouse fans who are making the same complaints about us because we come off that line very hard as well.
I think I was saying to you at the time that because we had possession, it looked, they were getting away with more than we were getting away with, but that's literally only because we had more possession, so
yeah.
they were the ones that were having to do slightly dodgy stuff like be offside or
It just appeared that they were.
tackle a
I mean,
guy
yeah.
in the air
And
or
it's funny when you watch it on the telly, it doesn't look as
No, it doesn't, no.
I would say
that happens a
obvious
lot,
or-
alright.
Well, see, a TV has a wider angle than your eyes kind of thing because you're looking at the ball and you're looking at the immediate play and then you look up and you see there's two of their guys nearly onto your back line. Whereas on TV, you've got a wider...
So good old Shawnee.
You can actually see Gibson Park drop back there
Yeah.
because he knows the kick is coming, so he's dropped back into the sweeper position.
Mm-hmm.
And there he is.
he runs in
you see a better view of it from behind the
Yeah.
sticks.
and over the
Now watch Gary Ringrose's line. Cuts
Yeah,
across
yeah.
Huget to make sure there's no chance of him getting to burn.
Yeah. And that was the important score.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me we were getting a bonus point and that we'd be winning whatever it was 20-something 6 with a few minutes to go, I would not have believed you before the game.
Yeah.
With that back
Some
line,
class, isn't it?
like Rory O'Loughlin, Adam Byrne and Dave Kearney,
And indeed Jordan Larmour at fullback.
and I was about to say Jordan Larmour at fullback. Like that's pretty much everyone bar Gary Ringrose in the outside backs
yeah.
is kind of not first choice, I would say, in their position. You could have had James Lowe in there, Robbie Henshaw, even Joe Tamani maybe earlier in the season. You would have had him in there. Maybe not so much anymore. Obviously Rob Kearney a fullback. Like these are all big losses for us.
And there was very low average age in that back line. I think the
24.
average age was 24, and that includes having Dave Kearney skew things completely,
Yeah, what's he, 29 is
He's
it?
29, yeah. So that just shows you, how young the backline was. But I'm sure we'll talk about the latest Premiership whinges, but that shows you the advantage of being able to develop players.
Yeah.
That we could comfortably drop in guys like Rory O'Loughlin, who's got a lot of big game experience, or Ross Byrne. People forget played against Montpellier home and away last season.
Yeah,
And
and Exeter.
And
And
Exeter.
Exeter. So he has a lot of big game experience too.
And didn't he play in the semi-final, the Pro 14 semi-final?
Against
He did, yeah.
Munster,
Against
yeah.
Munster.
Yeah.
But like, absolutely, couldn't agree more with you. But I think some of the players like Ringrose, Cronin, Conan and Ruddock, fellas that say, shall we say, someone from a different club might be pushing ahead of them, or they're certainly with some very big performances with the Six Nations and World Cup just looming around the corner. You know, there's like, say, Ringrose might have, you know, Addison has been a bit of a revelation since he's come. Bundy Aki, obviously, your man Farrell down in Munster's getting loads of column inches. And it was time for Ringrose to kind of step up, and he did. I thought he was great.
By God,
likewise, Ruddock, I thought that was one of Ruddock's best games for us.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because with potentially Peter O'Mahony injured, he's rated no better than 50-50 for Saturday, for example, coming up to the Six Nations. I mean,
having Ruddock there is a good thing. Yeah.
Having Ruddock there, or having Conan there, because Conan's thinking, well, maybe Joe will move CJ around the corner and I can come in, or maybe he'll go with Ruddock.
To Dave Cahill.
Well, I mean, he has done it before, so I mean, it means that for both those players there is a carrot, and they've responded to it. I mean, it'd be hard to say. I was thinking, like, on the scale of, say, Black Sunday to Claremont in the semi-final, where that rated as an away performance. It's certainly in the upper third for Leinster in Europe. It's certainly one of not an away performance, but one of our best European performances. Sorry, it's certainly one of our best.
Well, particularly when we saw the side that was selected.
Yeah,
you know, like, I think if we had a full complement, I'd be quite confident going into that match. But when I saw the team, and I thought, oh my God, like, this is a huge banana skin, or potentially a banana skin.
No, banana skin is when a shit team comes along and trips you up. There wasn't a banana skin at all. That would have been we would have been serious. I don't know how we were favourites for it. We were.
Well, bookies don't get it wrong too often.
They were right.
Points.
It wasn't just guys missing. There was positional disruption as well. You know, because the units were broken up. I mean, that's a new back three. It was a newish centre partnership.
Larmour's very young to be. I know he plays well at full back, but he
had potentially his worst game for Leinster over into Toulouse.
Yeah, and he had a very good game on Saturday. And you have like Rory O'Loughlin, who's nominally more of an outside centre than an inside centre. You know, you've got and there's changes like that, but I thought everyone. I mean, if you couldn't be critical really of any of them. I mean, and the substitutes as well. I mean,
who were very callow. Like, looking at that bench before start, I thought anyway, Andrew Porter, who else is going to have a big impact? And he did have a big impact.
Yeah, huge impact. I mean, his stats are off the wall. Like, and Ed Byrne did really, really well when he came on. I thought he did superbly well.
Well, maybe he was selected ahead of Jack McGrath on form rather than...
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe McGrath got to go against Ulster to see how he was going to go, and
maybe Ed is the form man.
Maybe Ed is looking better in training. I don't know either.
But he certainly deserved his position and didn't disgrace the jersey.
Exactly.
Well, we have a look. We talked about some of the other results from the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose matches opened up on Friday with Gloucester been stuffed by Munster.
Yeah. Horsted.
41-15. Munster won that game. Like, again, you know, Carberry's going to gobble up all the column inches, but he was very good.
But Murray.
Excellent.
Murray was great. But like, those two just controlled the game.
Oh yeah.
But like, while watching the game, a friend of mine said, which of the current Leinster players that are playing for other clubs who potentially we might have missed the most, you know? And we were debating whether it was Conway or would it be Carberry or Byrne.
It's Jody Murphy. I mean, we've had problems in the back row with injury all season. It's Jody Murphy's the guy we've missed the most.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think.
We've had some fairly decent replacements.
We have, but we've had situations where Van der Fleer and we did have to play a guy out of school this season. Not ideal. He turned out to be really quite good.
But I think you're talking
about. Not ideal.
But I think you're talking about just covering for an injuries. It's like fellas who are going to come into a team and be starters. You know, it's not someone coming. It's the likes of say Ty Byrne, who would get into probably, if there was a Lions team been picked, there's a good chance he'd go on it. I think he's going to be pushing for the Irish starting 15, if not certainly in the squad.
Absolutely, yeah. Henderson out, he'd be definitely in there.
With Henderson out, I mean, with Henderson's fit, he doesn't make 23, but with Henderson there, he's.
Well, with Henderson there, he might
make the
23, but he definitely does. Possibly, yeah. They're kind of like for like-ish.
They are like for like. I think that's Joe wants that 5/6.
Yeah.
But just in terms of,
But like, if you just the point was we were talking about was Conway, and
He's
you
in
know,
a great vein
he's
of
in
form,
such a
yeah.
great fame, and like any little chance, 50-50 chance, he's snaffling them up, especially that
he's a
kick
super
through
coach.
that Carberry put through, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know Conway's playing probably the best. He you can see a year-on-year progression with him. So he is playing the best rugby of his career so far. But that's because last year he was playing the best rugby of his career, and he's gone on again.
But like, I remember it was the night before I went away to watch Leinster play Toulon in the quarter final in 2014, and the night he was playing for Leinster. He's playing for Munster A's against Leinster A's in the B&I Cup quarter or semi final, and it was he was on the bench, so he went from playing in the Pro 12 final for Leinster,
Playing an Amlin final.
and an Amlin final, and then he went from that to
Munster A.
A on the bench.
But
and I'm sure he was thinking.
Fair
God,
play
oh,
to him. He didn't put his head down and whinge about it. He got on with it. And
Or he did put his head down and didn't whinge about it.
Yeah.
exactly. So fair play to the guy. He really.
You know, I mean, people forget. I mean, you move clubs, and he's been in that Leinster environment since he was, we'll say, 12 or 13 through Blackrock and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it would have been a big kind of. I'm not saying it's like moving to Japan or something, but there would. I mean, all the rugby culture he grew up with had changed completely. So that takes a while to come to terms with and to get used to. It's a whole new and Munster at the time used their wings very differently than Leinster did and all this kind of stuff. So
yeah. Anyway, he's made his bed, and
well, he has made his bed.
He seems to be lying in it happily.
He's happy.
yeah, no, he nailed his colours quite to the mast.
Oh,
didn't he?
yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that. The other Irish team.
But sorry, just to go back to the actual game itself, I said to Miriam, the wife, after 10 minutes after Murray had put up the 3rd-inch perfect box kick that Glasgow players couldn't run away from fast enough, that this game was over. I said
Gloucester.
after, well,
Gloucester
Gloucester players couldn't run away from fast enough, that this game was over, and it was. I mean, you could see that they weren't prepared for what was coming. They just weren't. I mean, but then again, you look at Munster are one of the top teams in the Pro 14.
But they also pull it out for Europe
And
every time.
Gloucester are closer to the bottom of the Gallagher Premiership.
The fourth.
I know, but they're closer to the bottom of the Gallagher Premiership than they are to the top. Because after the big three, there's a real fucking drop off in the Premiership. That's the reality of it. You know, they are what they are. And,
Big two.
Well,
The big two.
it's big two, an intermittent third, and then from fourth down, it's, Italian sides. Which reminds me, we're looking at a situation now where we're going over to Wasps and we're debating the bonus point, and all the English clubs, with the exception of Exeter, really, and Saracens, are out of it. Should we really be cutting the English representation and bringing in more, stronger competition in Italian clubs?
It's a valid point.
You look at the English clubs this year.
Yeah, well,
Are there
it does,
hearts in it?
It does.
Or
Go,
are they like, do they not care about it, or are they?
They
Just
don't
not that
care
good?
as much. Like very few countries prioritise Europe in the way that Irish teams do. Like,
The same can be said about
it
the Welsh
seems-
clubs. The Welsh clubs are pretty dire this year
They are,
as
yeah,
usual.
yeah.
As usual.
well, it
Yeah.
seems to go with length of competition. So, like the European Cup is older than the Celtic League, therefore it has more priority. Whereas the top 14,
Marginally,
yeah,
like
but
it's only
still
about
older.
5 years.
But
And the English league is only started in the
83.
it's a bit more than 5. It's about 8. But even so, whether it's 5 or 8, it was a big deal for those years before the Celtic League came along. And the Celtic League it took 5 years to get a sponsor,
Yeah,
and it took a long. Nobody took it seriously in the first 5 years much,
and it gets enough of a bad press.
It still
particularly
does.
by
for loads of reasons. But let's not get bogged down in that right now. But the
There's
top
also-
14,
there's also a thing to forget
there's
is
fellas'
the
great grandfathers played in the top
Yeah.
14. That's how long that's gone. So
The standard of rugby in the Premiership is very poor. The standard of player available in England is very poor. I mean, they have.
how did that happen all of a sudden?
But it's been a gradual decline. I mean, they've 40 million people. So they have weight of numbers, but the number of players coming through at the top of the pyramid. England are very competitive at age grade. Their under 20s are superb, but those guys aren't coming through to the top levels, and that's something they have to look at. I mean,
Is that because they buy a big name from South Africa or New Zealand who parachutes into the club and is taking the place of what should be homegrown talent.
Perhaps there's a perception, because I know that the two best players, if you like, on the English team, that under 20 team that won the Grand Slam either last year or the year before, in Zach Mercer and Cock Nathinga, both made it through to Premiership rugby, but not a whole lot of the others have. I mean, what's his name? Tanu Manga's nephew. Was in that team, and he never really made it through. And he was a big player in that team. So there's of course there's different paces of guys coming through, but they don't seem to bring through guys as often. And maybe you're right, Jay. Maybe there is an element that
they don't have these games where the other side field a very weakened team against them and they can afford to play. You know, they don't have.
But even
I know it's a cliche.
More opportunities than you do in England.
Yeah, well, I know it's a cliche, but you know, when England are winning, it's because they've got a tough league and relegation, and when they're losing, it's because they've got a tough league and relegation. So they do have a tough league and they do have relegation, and it's not just the fact. It's not just the fact that you know that relegated teams are, you know, that the teams that are in no danger of relegation. It's not just that. It's the fact that their teams are playing against, like, they're not playing against the Southern Kings, or, you know, they're playing against teams who could get relegated and therefore are going to.
But here's the thing.
But on the other
it's
thing,
a cliche.
You're playing against teams who could get relegated because they're shit. I mean, that's the other side of it.
But you look at, say, the team that we selected at the weekend, and you take out the 5 or 6 guys that, if we're playing in the European Cup final, would probably be in the. It's certainly not the 15 to 23, right?
Could be a lot more than 5.
Oh no, the 5 guys that were injured.
Oh, sorry,
right,
sorry,
or suspended. And the reason that Rory O'Loughlin can kind of fit in is because Rory O'Loughlin has got game time this season.
Of course.
Or Ross Byrne, because Johnny Sexton doesn't play every single game that's available for him to be selected in. So Ross Byrne can come and play in that match and not look like a fish out of water, because you saw what happened when we played Bath. They had to fly some fella in from New Zealand who was out fishing or something. Who, you know, because Priestland was injured and the other out half was Crook as well. Yeah. So they had to fly in. So instead of having this talent in your club that you're given opportunities to, but because they have this, pressurized environment that every game is considered like a cup final. How can you develop anything with that attitude? Have your cup finals at the end of the season. You don't need to play them in September and October.
And the other side of that is, you know, they could have those guys if they were to, you know, maybe take a bit of a risk. And I'm not saying drop in 4 or 5 of them at once. I'm saying, you know, give what if you just will as an imaginary situation, you're Bath and you have Cotton the thing and you're thinking, oh, this is a young guy, will I give him a go? Yeah, give him a go. But your other 2 guys can be first choice in the back 3. And you have a young guy there, and that brings him through, and then you can bring another guy through, and before long your team turns over. And that's one of the you see peaks and troughs much more strongly pronounced in English clubs than you do in, say, Irish or French clubs, because when a good team falls off a cliff, it goes en masse, just like the Kerry team from the 70s. That whole team goes, and you don't have guys coming through. Whereas Welsh,
you could say it's a bit like the Munster team.
Possibly,
they all got old together, and they didn't really bring through the talented young fellas to replace.
Maybe it wasn't coming through.
Well, maybe it wasn't, but you know, you can't give 15 guys the same opportunity at the start.
Of course,
you have to gradually introduce them in, and get a new scrum half playing with O'Gara, or you know, a new out half playing with Stringer.
But what happens effectively is, because they don't rotate their players and they rally them every week, they get injured. Yeah. So they have to rotate them anyway, but just because they're injured. So, like, look, you just said it about Bath having now out halves. All of a sudden, you get...
But what did they do?
Their first choice back row...
They didn't go into their academy. They went and they got some...
journeyman Kiwi.
And that's not a bad thing, because journeyman Kiwi are generally quite good. But that's what they did.
Mm. But look at Falatau out again now.
Yeah.
And him, Lowe, and is it Mercer? Whatever their
Underhill.
first. Underhill as well. Yeah. They've never played together this season.
Yeah.
Just because one of them's always, at least one of them, if not 2 of them, have always been injured.
Yeah.
And now Underhill's out as well. Like, Bath are
you just kind of
having an awful time.
I suppose you have to hope that they don't get their house in order, because
Well,
They
if
do
English,
have a lot of resources.
If English
and
rugby
they do,
had-
they start to leverage that population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the rest of us are. I mean, there's no way any of us, really, with the possible exception with France, should be able to live with England.
No
way in God's green earth.
and you think back, whatever, 25 years ago when they wanted to split away from Scotland, Wales, Ireland, not even have Italy in the Six Nations, and go and play the Kiwis and the South Africans every couple of weeks. You know, that was their plan.
Yeah, and that kind of there was a huge sense that, oh, look, the arrogance of the English, and to a certain extent it was, but at the other end in 5 years later, they were winning the World Cup. You know, so I mean, there was an element that they were on that level. Of course, the thing is, if you don't, because they didn't have the structures underneath, they couldn't maintain that level, and then you had like the Andy Robinson and the Martin Johnson years, you know, where things kind of fell off a cliff. You got a situation now where, you know, there's huge numbers of. Why are there so many injuries in training in the England squad?
That's what the owners would like to know as well.
Yeah, well, there was that injury report last week, and one of the things that highlighted was how many players get injured in training. And there's talk now that they might introduce an NFL. You know, the way in the NFL you've limited contact sessions, that they might decide to do that as a way. But then again, if you're flogging guys every week, then that kind of thing's going to build up rather than giving them a rest.
Yeah,
So.
I remember hearing an interview with Donnacha O'Callaghan when he was still playing for Worcester, and he was maybe about 2 years ago, and he was saying he couldn't get over when he came from Munster to there how there was so many contact sessions compared to what we do.
and playing their lines in pre-season friendlies
But that is
and
mental,
all
isn't
that
it?
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I remember going to watch, I think it was Northampton, and it was a few months after we'd beaten them in the final in Cardiff, and we played them in a pre-season friendly. I think it was that season.
Yeah, near enough the same team.
Yeah, and we were playing, you know, probably Jack Conan, for example, was probably just getting his run out in those games, whereas they were playing all the lads that were in the final.
That happens every season.
Bonkers.
That we play an English team.
When we play an English team, you see the guys and you see all the stars, which is great actually. Certainly helps Leinster sell it. But it's not the best resource management, I would have thought.
No. Anyway, moving on, looking at some of the other results. The Ulster one was a bit of a turn up for the books. 26-22.
There's no turnips at all. But yeah, it was great to see. Unfortunately, they didn't limit one of the bonus points for Racing.
Yeah.
Because that would have suited us personally, and possibly got us into a better seeding position in the quarterfinals if we had have taken account of it. But they did play, like, they were missing a few players, like I said, Cooney gone in the warm up. They did a great game, and they're playing like
I guess.
They're playing European royalty nearly in Racing. Were in the final last year. They've got all the top players. They've got serious money. They're a serious outfit that you would have expected on paper. They swiped them away, but they didn't. And they had guys like Shanahan stepping up, who would have been on the bench, stepping in and having a cracker of a game. And a few other players, and of course, Stockdale, with his bit of magic. He's a phenomenon.
And you might say it was first season luck, or he was going to hit second season syndrome. But he hasn't. Like, he scored 6 tries in 5 Heineken Cup matches.
Yeah.
He scored a try against the All Blacks.
All Blacks.
Obviously we know what he did last year in the Six Nations. He's he's a phenomenal
he is. He's an unbelievable finisher, like Irish rugby hasn't had in a long time, if ever.
He's such a strong man. Like he's
big fella,
complete set.
6'4" or something. He's built with it.
He's big,
as they say.
he's quick, he's decent feet.
Yeah. I heard Tommy Bowe talking about him, and he kind of said, and I think it was Trimble as well. They kind of were talking amongst each other, and they were saying, well, when we saw him coming through,
time to retire.
I kind of thought it might be time for us to go. But one thing I thought, and it was the same thing against Leinster the previous week, was I couldn't get over. Ulster made it so like they nearly threw that game away.
Yeah.
Because I just thought their tackling was shocking.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, their defence was great. I read some articles saying that they thought their defence was great. I thought it was absolutely appalling. I thought they just couldn't. They missed so many tackles.
Their shape was good, right? And what they were doing was good. The problem is when it came to the point of impact, they were falling off the tackles and they were missing the tackles. So I think they've got the tactic right. Now they have to work on the actual technique.
Execution.
Yeah. But there are a fully loaded Ulster team are a good team.
Yeah.
You know, if they get everyone back fit,
On their day.
I mean they're not going to win it, but they're a decent side. And you wouldn't want to be playing
You'd
them.
have to look at their from 16 to 23 though.
That's the issue. But this period of time has given them like we were saying, there is an option there. I mean, they got McCluskey back, they get all the guys in the back line back, they get Craig Gilroy, get Rory Best fully fit, get Henderson fully fit, all the guys in the front row fully fit. You know, there are options there.
That young fella, I think he plays either out half or full back. He's small.
Oh, Larry, yeah.
Larry, God, he's a fine
Yeah,
player.
he's a converted out half.
Yeah.
He's nominally an out half, but yeah, he's got a good step on him, hasn't he? Yeah. And he's brave.
Yeah, didn't
He took down
big hit on your man?
what's his name?
Nakarawa.
Yeah,
took him right down. So, I mean, there are players there. Balakoon has come through. He's come through from the 7th side actually.
That's right, yeah.
So he's done really, really well. The things aren't as bleak maybe as they might have been. I mean, they've got out half. They got centres. Will Addison looks like a nailed on for the World Cup squad anyway. For the Six Nations, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, because we've got the three centres we've had over the last couple of years in Ireland with the Irish team have been Ringrose, Henshaw, and Aki. Right. So you start 2 of those. Does the third one even make the bench? Because
probably not with Will Addison.
Because Will Addison is there, and he covers a multitude of players. So he would enable, for example, and he was goal kicking the other night as well. He would enable Schmidt to go if he wanted to go with a 6-2 split, for example.
You'd also have to think that him and Joey Carberry could cover pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You could, nearly think of Carberry as a scrum half, but he definitely covers 15 and 10. Addison covers the centres.
10, 12, 13, 15, 11, 14.
Yeah, all of that. Between the two of them now, they've got the whole thing
I'm
nailed
sure
down.
there'll be a few sweaty palms for a few of those other centres, thinking, God, am I even going to make the squad when Addison seems to be, I'm not sure he's nailed on.
He's nailed on because of his versatility.
Yeah.
Joe Schmidt is famous for loving it. He always said it. Madigan always got his game. If Sexton wasn't fit, he'd pick Jackson to start. If Sexton was fit, Madigan would always be on the bench.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Carberry, is always going to be on the bench.
It's the same with Burns/Henderson.
everything.
He likes versatility.
Yeah, and why wouldn't he?
I mean, Porter has an advantage there because he can play on both sides of the scrum. That's what he likes.
Yeah.
But it's great that in fairness, whoever's working in the Exiles Union over there, picking up the Exiles province, one of our friends, they picked up a few good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got England's Mike Halley had a great game down in Munster. Will Addison, obviously. Billy Burns is a bit of a slow burner, but I mean, he's in the system now. We've already had Kieran Marmion through. Kind of Reece Ruddock was part of that system as well, but not really, but sort of. So there's guys coming through. Arnold came through that system.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys been picked up. Tom Denton. But
heavy hitters.
There are guys been picked up and brought through into the system and it's working.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to cut down our foreign players, we have to get extra bodies in from somewhere.
It's just Joe Lydon, isn't it? And
Yeah, Joe Lydon. Yeah.
Who else is there?
Joe Lydon.
Joe Lydon, and is Rob Henderson involved?
There's somebody else involved. I can't remember.
No, Kevin Maggs.
Kevin Maggs, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was a centre.
Yeah. A crash ball centre, a hard hitting centre.
Yeah.
Two very fine players actually.
Okay, just quickly running through some of the other results, and then we'll talk about the rankings of the teams and look forward to next week. So, from our group, I suppose Bath beat Wasps, which I think is a good result.
It's good for result
For
for
Probably.
us, kind of means
Probably.
Wasps are up.
And they both played shite. As from what I hear, I didn't see it. So that's a good thing too.
Yeah, Montpellier
For us.
stuffed Newcastle.
Yeah.
Saracens, as we know,
Lashed Leon out of it.
yeah, beat Leon 28-10. Glasgow beat Cardiff.
Again.
And Edinburgh beat Toulon.
Yeah.
Yes, they did, and we're good value for it too.
Yeah.
And finally, Scarlets beat Leicester Tigers, who seem to be...
Again in a dead rubber.
Yeah. Actually, Morgan Downey's continuing obsession with Jordan Murphy this week is with Jordan Murphy really turning things around. Have Ulster any chance against a rejuvenated Leicester? I think we'll discuss that when we come to next week's fixtures.
Yeah.
But no,
It's interesting. The two groups, our group and Ulster's group, are the only two groups where first isn't playing second. The other three groups, first is playing second next week. And and we've both got a French team, who's also we're first and second with French teams in the opposite positions. So
there's 10 teams still in
with
an
interest,
qualifying.
Montpellier and Exeter being the two outside currently.
Yeah, well, Exeter on 13 points, so they obviously were going to play Munster in Thomond, so that's a big ask for them.
But if they win,
yeah, if they win,
4-0 puts them top of the group.
Yeah,
4-0 or 5-1 or 5-0 puts them top of the group.
It's still a big ask.
It's a big ask, but they are capable of doing it. In fairness, it's Exeter.
And there's only one team coming out of that group.
Yeah.
But in fairness, all Munster need is
a point.
A point, really.
Yeah.
Well, unless they
5-1. Yeah.
But they don't need a whole lot. Like obviously,
we're currently ranked third on 20 points. Saris are on 23 and Racing are on 21.
Yeah. Saracens are playing Glasgow, and if Glasgow need to beat them by 10 points to top the group, which is unlikely seeing the Saracens are at home.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Unlikely, but possible. Like, you just never know.
It's feasible.
You just never know, because Saracens are already qualified.
Yeah.
But obviously they don't want to qualify like they did last year and
end up coming over to Dublin
in an away quarter final. So they need to win or draw to get a home.
And I suppose the other team
or lose by less than 10 points.
Do us a favour is Scarlets. Scarlets have to travel over to Paris.
There's about as much chance of that. I mean,
but
I think Glasgow
beating more likelihood of that result than with Saracens.
I don't think so. I think Glasgow will be
whatever about that. It'd be a hell of a shootout anyway. We know that it's going to be one of those games that's going to end up 57-42 or 45. Because that's how both those teams go.
Well, the good news for us is that we're on last for the first time I can remember. It's a long time since we were on last, if ever. So that gives us the advantage of knowing exactly what we need to finish exactly where we want to finish. Obviously, where you want to finish is first or second, and that may not be an option. If Racing and Saracens both win, that's not going to be an option for us. But you just never know. One of them could slip
not
up.
Not necessarily. If we win with a bonus point,
and
Racing only win with a regular 4-point win, we have a better goal difference.
We have a better everything.
So we could potentially leapfrog them that way.
Yeah, but I can't see
that
game going that way. Again, I can nearly see Glasgow winning by 10 points ahead. In a freak
I
result.
didn't say that game over in Paris is more likely to be a 5-2.
Yeah, it could be. It could well be. Looking forward to our game then over in Coventry. We've gone there a couple of times in recent years and been stuffed. Obviously, it's a different Wasps. They have different personnel. They had something in. They had skin in the game when we went over previously. They had nothing in this one. So
they've nothing in the game. They're on the way.
I think the one thing that could go in their favour though is that we stuffed them in October and we murdered them, and I think a bit of pride. So that they might put up some sort of resistance.
You know what I say? Fuck pride.
If you remember, Wasps had no skin in the game last year against Ulster, who needed a win, and Wasps still did them. Gave them an awful doing. Now we're a bit better than Ulster. Wasps are a bit worse than they were last year, so they will have a certain amount of pride. And I always say, I mean, I've said it many times about the pride of the English club and English rugby players. Thing is, Wasps don't have very many English rugby players.
Well, they really are.
Their club culture is a bit. You got guys like Willie LaRue. Somebody had a stat there that there's a 30% drop off in his tackle success rates between South Africa and Wasps.
Really?
Wow.
You got Lima Sopoanga who seems to want to be carried onto the pitch and the big bed of money. There's stuff like that happened. We've seen Wasps all this season in the European Cup. I mean, I remember Wasps with Johnny O'Connor and Lawrence Delalio and all those guys and Rob Howley and then Owen Redden and that kind of second tranche team. Those guys, if that team met the current Wasps teams in a dark alley, they'd kick the living shit out of them for the way they've been behaving themselves and playing, and the way they've been wearing the jersey on the pitch. They wouldn't be acceptable.
How are they doing in their league?
Crap.
Are they?
Yeah.
They're still third. They're back down. Are they? Yeah, but they are. You can see them on the slide. There's all kinds of talk like Elliot Daly's going to leave and all these little things adding
Whereas
up. To
Nathan Hughes is the latest one who's going to leave.
Gonna leave. Well, you can just feel the kind of bang of what's the word? The smell of blood in the water there with them, you know. So, yeah, maybe they'll have a bit of pride. But
even like Haskell had to leave, didn't he, at the end of last season?
Yeah, because of the wage cap.
Because of the
Wages,
wage cap.
yeah.
So
Salary
you
cap,
think
yeah.
that, like I would have presumed would have been Wasps quite to the core. Like he would have.
Well, he has played for
Well, he
about
has, but
16 other teams.
No, he
Yeah,
has,
but
but he started.
He started
there,
with them,
Well,
yeah.
in fairness, 12 of those other teams have been Wasps, if you know what I mean, because he keeps going and coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, if there's a bit of pride, to quote,
And there's talk that Derek Richardson has to put more money in. Not Derek Richardson, isn't it?
That's
Derek
him, yeah.
Richardson? Yeah, has to put more money in.
They weren't they? There was some sort of financial irregularity. That money had been borrowed and hadn't.
Yeah,
been
the bond issue or
declared,
something in
yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Hubba-da.
An everyday tale of English rugby club administration in the
Yes.
Premiership.
What's new?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose turning our attention to actually rugby on the pitch. I presume, and obviously we don't know how serious Luke McGrath's injury is, but I
Nope.
don't think he's going
No.
to get selected this weekend.
I'd be very
Definitely not.
surprised.
So you're going to have, I think, Jemison will start,
Yeah.
and then that is obviously going to mean that there's a knock-on effect. There's always going to be 2 from 3.
Well, Toner's
Does-
back, so it could be Fardy
Does
going.
Fardy slept down?
Well, we've got a couple of questions in around that. Gary Wynn asks, so Gibson Park to step in for the injured McGrath. Do you play low or Fardy against Wasps?
I think we might play low because, well, unless it's a case of he's getting a bit of extra punishment from the club for giving away a red card, which I can't see. It's Fardy is less needed because Toner is going to be okay.
Yeah.
So you could go with Toner and James Ryan and keep Ross Maloney on the bench and go with Lowe. And, you know, I mean, this is such a pain in the arse for all 3 players and us as fans.
Yeah.
It's finishing in June, so...
Well, that actually ties into another question we had from Mick Thompson. How are you, Mick?
Harry Michael.
He asks, with Fardy's contract up at the end of the year, do you reckon he will sign on again? Or will he be let even, indeed? But sure, let's come to the... If he doesn't, do we have to recruit, or do we have anyone nearly ready to step into the squad? Maloney has been better in the last 2 months. First of all, Ross Maloney has been superb. This is his best
Very
year
good,
with Leicester
yeah.
jersey, it has to be said. But Fardy is the spiritual heir of, you know, that kind of
Brad Thorne,
Nathan Hines, Leo Cullen,
Mhm.
you know, does what has to be done
He's
out of sight of the
35.
referee kind of thing.
35 at the end of the season. I'd like to see another year out of him, I have
Yeah.
to say.
Very well.
Whether they'll be...
Whether
they'll be allowed. B,
He'll want
there's a World Cup coming up. He
Yeah.
might want to play for Australia, even though there's a whiff of shit off them as well. He may well want to go there and see, you know, do Leinster want to keep him, or they do have a couple of guys coming through, but I think they might be a year or 2 off being at the level.
I can't see Leinster or been allowed. If they weren't allowed to keep Nathan Hines,
No, I think it's a whole different landscape now. Like, we're donating 2 players to the Ireland matchday squad as second rows. I think if Leinster want to keep him and he wants to
maybe
stay,
4 back rows as well. So
I think there's no chance to get, or there's no question the IRFU will stop us. Look, they've pulled out all the stops for Munster. They can hardly turn around to us, good little boys who provided all their players, and say, "Sorry, lads, you're not getting another
I think Jason
year out of."
chuckles at your innocence.
Well,
I now, whereas I would obviously, I think that certain people in the IRFU organisation were spat out of the bumhole of Satan, but at the same time, I think the IRFU would be would look
Amenable.
generously on if we were to re-sign
They'll
Fardy.
have to.
Because
They'll
I mean, apart from what he does on the pitch, I mean, is his contribution to the culture of this new team has been
Absolutely.
significant.
Yeah.
You know, and he was nominated for European Player of the Year last year.
Yeah.
So we saw on Saturday he still has it. And
He's very low
is it-
mileage for his
is-
age.
Is it any coincidence that guys like Ross Maloney and Mick Carney have looked better since he's come in, and indeed James Ryan? You know, guys like that. I mean, if you get the right foreign player, we've always said, you get the right foreign player, they leave a legacy behind them. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see him stay. Whether we will, I kind of have a little from column A and a little from column B here in terms of, you know, what will happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, does he want to stay, or does he want to go and play in the World Cup? That's probably the biggest.
The World Cup could be a thing because Czech is kind of in trouble and he needs bodies who he can rely on. So if his contract's up at the end of the season, put on a quick Super Rugby contract, and then he's in the Australian system again.
No problem. Like he walk
Because
straight
I don't
into
think
the
he
World
qualifies
Cup.
under Gitto's law.
No,
Doesn't use enough caps for it.
He wouldn't
No.
have
only
30
30,
caps.
yeah.
So, boys, who do you think will come out of the? Not asking you to predict the finishing positions, but what?
So we've got a couple more questions about next week if you wanted to. If you
Oh,
want to
go
go
on.
with them.
All right.
Go ahead.
Colin Campbell asks, do you think Sexton will play Sunday even if he's fit?
That's an interesting question because there's talk that himself, Kearney and Toner were kind of rested by the IRFU, which is
Horseshit.
hard to believe when they
Yeah,
say they never
I find
interview,
that
or they never
absolute
interview,
bullshit.
they never interfere in European
Although Devin
match day.
Toner was very
squad.
certain he'd be available for
Yeah, he
next
was.
week on after in the.
But I'm sure there's
post-match
like,
game.
he's a niggle and it.
Yeah, he probably knows. Yeah, it was a week too soon kind of thing. But yeah,
Yeah,
and Henshaw was doing Waterboy.
I don't think what's wrong with Sexton is too bad. Henshaw, like you say, Waterboy, that's a sure sign. It's you're nearly always going to play when you're Waterboy the week before. So having Henshaw would make a big difference even if Sexton wasn't back. Like somebody said to me during the week, would you rather have Sexton back or have Henshaw back? And the fact that you have to think about it, yeah, of course you want Sexton back. He's World Player of the Year, but Sexton and Byrne,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
or sorry, Byrne and Henshaw is a pretty good combination in midfield as well. So
Yeah, no, I mean I generally I think it's a good rule of thumb that the IRFU don't really interfere in European. I mean, they may feel that they have to, but it's generally a good rule of thumb that
yeah,
they don't
but
interfere in European.
in a World Cup year when you've got World Player of the Year having a slight niggle, where if it was a Six Nations game he might play. If it's a Leinster game, they're going to go nah.
I suppose there might be an element of well, it's a game against Wasps, who are out of the competition. Leinster have Ross Byrne. That there might be that element to it, but whether they will or not, I don't know. I'd find it hard to believe that they would. I don't know. What do you
Who
think,
knows?
Jay?
Well, he played against Dragons at the start of the season, so I think it's horseshit.
Maybe that was just to try and
Maybe that's why they're unarrested.
maybe the Irish
Schmitters
hate
are too
Bernard
high.
Chapman. We have another question. We asked Gary Williams' question. We asked Nick Thompson. Eugene Dempsey does Lowe. Now here's a good one. Does Lowe slot straight back in despite the performances of Dave Kearney and Adam Byrne?
That is a good question. I think yes, because he's just so like if we intend on scoring 4 tries,
He's a difference maker.
he's a
Isn't he?
machine.
Yeah.
Like the other 2 guys playing, Dave Kearney's try was absolutely splendid. Adam Byrne made yards, like we said. But like if you got him back, I don't know, is Kearney back either? I mean, it's another thing we don't know at this stage of the week. But if he's playing, you've got one of Kearney or Byrne on the bench. Let's say Kearney at 23, rather because we've had last time we had 2 12s, on the bench. We'd Noel Reid and Conor O'Brien were our 2 outside backs on the bench. So that's not exactly a versatile bit of cover. You've got to shift people around when they come on.
Yeah.
So to have Dave Kearney there along with a 10-12 type player would be.
I think
Quite
it gives
sweet.
great credit to the performances of the 2 boys that you could actually. I mean, James Lowe has been the most electrifying player we've had in the last 18 months. He's been
The fact
unbelievable.
that we're having the conversation
And
at all.
it's great credit to the 2 guys the way they performed over not just last game but in the game against Ulster as well, that or guys who played in those positions. It shows that it's a credit to them that you can have that conversation even about somebody like Lowe.
Absolutely.
Do you think there's any chance that the club will be saying, you got red carded and we have to have some sort of sanction on you, or is that not
I
so?
only said that in half in jest.
If it was a matter of real indiscipline on the pitch, that
Yeah.
they might decide to sit him on his ass to teach him a lesson, but it wasn't. It was,
It's a bit biting your nose to spite your face.
and it was one of those red card by rotes.
Yeah.
So
Is that it from the
that's
question
it
box?
from the question box for now.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna ask you what 8 clubs are gonna make it into the
Top 8.
into the top 8 into the quarterfinals.
Well, I think they're already there. I think Edinburgh have to. I think I said earlier, Edinburgh have to lose by more than 6 points to not be on top of their group. So that means Montpellier will be out. Like the Edinburgh Montpellier group and the Exeter Munster group are only going to yield one team.
Colin Meehan says if the RFU block another year of Scott Farley, we should march on Lansdowne Road with pitchforks.
Fair enough. I subscribe to that newsletter. But yeah, so
if Montpellier beat Edinburgh,
if they do, yeah,
it could quite easily happen.
Could happen. But they're away. Don't forget, they're in Murrayfield.
Yeah,
And in fairness,
Fortress Murrayfield.
Nobody beats Edinburgh easily. I mean, you said quite easily. I know it's just a turn of phrase, but there's no easy beating Edinburgh this year.
No, fair enough. They're a much more improved team, but
And they have to win by more than 6.
they're
Montpellier.
yeah, okay, but they could pretend. And if Exeter beat Munster,
Again, they have to do a big job
they
there.
do. But like they're the best English club. Like you know what I mean? They're not
Second best.
Okay, second best, but they're not playing. They're not playing Wasps, Bath, or Gloucester here now.
No.
They're playing Exeter.
That's true.
Like this is going to be an incredibly tough game for them. Exeter have the opportunity. This isn't a dead rubber. Exeter have a huge opportunity for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you think they've underperformed, like when we played them, what was it, 5-6 years ago, they were complete novices at this game. They'd only just got promoted. All of a sudden, they were playing, European champions. I remember meeting some fellas over there. They couldn't get over. The likes of O'Driscoll and Darcy were on the same pitch as their
They
club.
weren't that long up from the championship.
No, exactly. That was their point.
Up in 08, I
But like fast forward 6 years, and they've won premierships. They're leading
Oh, yeah.
the
They're a
league
great
at the
team.
moment. They're a great team. And
I mean, last season, apart from the final, our hardest game was against Exeter, and that was in a run that
That's what I was
included
gonna say,
Montpellier and Saracens.
We only squeaked by them twice.
and even the match in Dublin. I mean, like
Wasn't easy. Wasn't
that
easy.
was skin of the teeth job.
Yeah, but you just like Munster and Thomond Park, 26,000 people. They just have a knack of doing it in Europe. I don't care what you say. Remember years ago, George Hook used to be famous for saying, "Oh, they're definitely going to lose this one." Every time they come back and prove them wrong.
Yeah.
The advantage Munster have over almost everyone in world rugby, let alone the Pro 12 European rugby, is their mental strength. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a good Munster team or a bad Munster team. Their mental strength is extraordinary.
Even without Peter O'Mahony, who looks like he's may not make it, I can't see them going down Thomond Park by enough of a margin. Like if they just need to nick a losing bonus point to stay on top of the group. So I just
The only
can't
thing
see
is
them.
Exeter and Gloucester. Oh, Exeter! You saw Munster make hard work of teams that are renowned for being defensive. You saw it even against us, down to 14 men, for example. They found it hard going. I mean, they needed an intercept try. They had a similar issue against Castres. They found it very, very hard to make that breakthrough. And
But
Gloucester,
they don't need to go mad attacking. They
I know,
don't
but
need to
Exeter are a
do.
very strong team defensively.
I agree. And Munster they're lethal when they come up against poor teams.
Yeah.
But when they're up against a very good organised team, they're not. I mean, that match against us, they should have hockeyed us. Really, when you think we
14
we
men.
lost our heads. Our
13 men at one point.
Sexton swinging digs in the first 3 minutes of the match.
Mhm.
We got our yellow card. We got 2 yellow cards. We got
A red card.
a red card. And it was only in the last couple of minutes that they got that intercept, tried to exaggerate the scoreline, where they should have been. Even the other night, they were throwing balls into touch. They were.
Their handling has let them down
It
on
has,
occasion,
and
right?
I think that's a potential. Like everyone will go on about Munster at home, and that's I'm not saying it's a gimme, but they'll say, God, they have 26,000 baying fans.
It's not a gimme.
This is going to be one of the toughest tests that they're
Oh,
going to
for
face.
sure.
This is going to be a great game. I would marginally favour Munster to win it.
I think you're right,
But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. I mean, and you look at, we were talking earlier about Andrew Conway and how well he's playing. Jack Nowell came back last week and was absolutely superb. I don't know, did you see the Exeter game?
Yeah.
No.
Nowell he was electric in that match. He really, really was. So, there's lots of kind of things that balance off one another.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be, it's the free-to-air game actually this week, so which is great. Because it means a lot of people get to see a really, really top-class game of rugby, like they did actually last week. I mean, the fixtures have fallen quite well for the free-to-air viewers. So this is going to be epic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to the Ulster
Leicester.
Tigers game on
very
on
good.
Saturday because we.
It's about the same. Is that the same time as Munster? Or
No, I think it's on at 3:30 and the Munster's
Okay.
at 5:30. So
you'll get to a pub
we'll
in
find a
time.
pub to watch it if they show it over football or.
It'll be on Channel 4, so at least every pub over there should be able to show it, or you can go back to your room and watch it on your telly.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, wait, that's not going to happen, lads. Anyway, boys, one other point I just wanted to raise was there's after the Ulster match there was accusations from Zebo that he was racially abused.
Which
Hopefully,
seems to have been substantiated
Is it?
by Racing have made it from
Racing just made the same statement. Ulster are investigating. But I do
hopefully
know.
it's just one.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Or-
sounds,
I mean,
sounds like it's one
If
another.
you've got
Yeah.
18,000 people, you can guarantee. I'd be surprised if there were only one. I mean, anywhere in Ireland and England, indeed, if there were only one racist in it. But I do know that whenever a serious crime is committed against me, the first thing I do is report it on Instagram.
Yeah, fair play. Anyway, boys, as ever, thanks very much and thanks a million for watching. Cheers.